Welcome back to ThinkTech. I'm Jay Fidell. This is ThinkTech Tech Talks, and we're going to talk about some of the troubling things that are going on in the hacking world and the cyber world with Attila Seress, who joins us today from Cypac to talk about these things. Welcome to the show, Attila.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jay.
So let's talk first about the loss of a significant figure in the hacking world. He was a black hacker and then turned into I guess a white hacker, and he became famous for it. And that's Kevin Mitnick. And back in the early years of the aught years, when we had our show on KHPR, he actually appeared on our show, not in person though. He appeared on the telephone because I think it would have been much too risky for him to appear in person. Anyway, he died at the age of 59 last day or two. And it's worth spending a moment about what he felt was his greatest strength in the hacking world. And it was social engineering. Can you talk about that? Has that gone away?
I think it's more relevant now than ever. Social engineering is really simply a bad guy pretending to be someone else, either someone of authority or a reputable source, and taking advantage of unsuspecting people. I think he had a great story about Kevin Mitnick that kind of illustrates this. And I have a few I can add to that, but do you want to share that story, Jay?
Yeah, sure. So in the days before he became a white hat, he was a black hat. And when he was a black hat, one of his favorite things would be he would drive up to some house in a nice community in the morning, and he would be in a UPS uniform, and he would knock on the door, and he would say UPS delivery, and he would hand them a little shipping box with a disc inside, and he would say, this is for you. And the guy would say, oh, good, a shipping box for me, a disc for me. And he would take it and put it in his computer. This is the day when there were more disk drives in computers. And he put it in the computer, and all of a sudden, Kevin owned him. He owned everything on the computer. And it was really an interesting social engineering kind of experience. And he did that on a regular basis until one particular event where he appeared in his UPS outfit and handed the guy the disc. And the guy looked over Kevin's shoulder and he said, wait a minute, you're supposed to be UPS, but I'm looking into the street and there's no UPS truck here. There's something very fishy about this. And this led, I think, to an arrest. So Kevin was, clever, but not perfect. It was a great idea for social engineering, but it ultimately caught him. That's my story. And that's the story that Kevin told when he came on our ThinkTech show way back 15 or 20 years ago.
Well, it looks like you touched greatness a little bit there. He is definitely one of the more well-known hackers. In fact, I think I have one of his business cards here at my office somewhere. It's a lock-picking set on his business card itself. It's pretty fun. So, yeah, he did a great job marketing and bringing awareness to social engineering. And what social engineering does is it bypasses all that high-tech stuff that most people install. Years ago there used to be firewalls in front of people's networks, and you could hack the firewall and bypass it and get inside a customer's network. Well, guess what? All the new modern firewalls are pretty airtight, and the front end attack like that is not really possible. Email phishing is kind of the new way that they're able to get inside of folks' networks, but even there, the technology has gotten better to filter a lot of those out. Most people are pretty smart; they don't fall for a lot of these. So new tools like ChatGPT are giving these bad guys, these adversaries, ways in which they can social engineer their way inside of computer networks. I mean, there's a bunch. I was just looking at them today. There's a bunch of brand new, generative AI engines that are being used out in the wild. Many of these I hadn't even heard of, which was so fascinating. So it tells you that there are a lot more engines out there and ways in which they're going to be able to social engineer and get inside of your networks. And so your best defense is the human defense. And it is unfortunate, but we do see this not just on the technology side, but on the human side as well. Uh, Recently, we're talking with the FBI, and the FBI office out of which one was it? Albuquerque, New Mexico. They had an incident that involved Native Americans, and there was nothing high tech about it. They would simply, take advantage of these poor Native American communities, and bill them for services that were never rendered. And the FBI ended up shutting down over 100 centers which were doing this illegally to Native American populations out of Nevada and Arizona. So there's a lot of, and that was all social engineering. They were pretending to do something that they didn't do. And they took advantage of this poor population in order to do that. So social engineering, it's not going away anytime soon. It's been around a long time. Social engineering, I think, is a fun new word or a new way to describe it, but I guess we could call it scams or scammers, or it's as relevant now as ever before.
Yeah, and there are scams of all kinds and sizes emanating from every country you could think of in
Mhm.
every language. And most of the time they get away with it because the government isn't really equipped to deal with it. I'll give you one that I've heard of. So it's the automatic renewal scam. So you get to, subscribe to a particular program subscription thing. And in the EULA, bit, deep inside the EULA, it says it shouldn't be there. It should be somewhere else because EULAs don't cover this ordinarily. It says if you want to cancel, you have to cancel at least 30 days before the expiration of the subscription. Okay. And it never tells you how to cancel. There is no way you can find out how to cancel. You can call them, write them, but there's no description in any of the materials on how to cancel. So you try, but your email doesn't have any effect. Your attempt to call has no effect. And all of a sudden, on the 1-year anniversary of your subscription, your credit card is charged again because you didn't cancel. There are companies that make a living doing that. And it's just one possibility of scam. And it's very hard to deal with that because it could be very far away. And a lot of software subscriptions are made in very remote places in Europe and Asia. And it's very hard for you to actually escape them because you can never find out how to cancel.
Yeah, many of the scammers that we come across, they send those emails that say, "Hey, we tried to bill your card and it didn't go through." And there are sometimes for services that are legitimate. We tried to deliver this package and it didn't come through. Click here and enter in your 365 credentials, and then they're inside of your account. Um, there's social engineering encompasses seasonal things. Around Christmas time, we see a lot of package scams, but then we also see back to school scams. We see tax return scams in the beginning of the year. So just be aware that if something is relevant, you're gonna you're gonna get scammed about it. Anything that's new in the news. In fact, I think there was like a storm prep scam that just hit us, just because we had a storm coming to Hawaii. So prepare for the storm. Click here. Like it just doesn't end, Jay.
And this is not highly technical. There's no coding involved in this. There's no sophisticated computer programming involved in it. It's just a psychological gambit they play on you. And I agree that it's happening more and more in more ways, more creativity, and more people are getting caught. Yeah.
Well, the flip side is that the traditional types of the way that the bad guys used to get in isn't as effective. So they do have to turn to social engineering to be able to trick people into giving them their money and so on. Many of this though does fall into the hands of the IT departments though. So they can be blamed a little bit for not setting up their cloud infrastructure in a way that is safe. In fact, the CISA, so that's the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, and the FBI recently released. When I say recently, this was last week. They released an advisory, a joint advisory that said, "Hey guys, advanced persistent threat actors, so APTs are nation state, organized crime, well-funded cyber gangs. They are after Office 365 accounts." And they're specifically looking for state and federal, but they'll take anyone they can get. And they are trying to disrupt our economy by going after our accounts. Now, 2/3 of businesses out there use Microsoft 365 for day-to-day communication. So that's email, OneDrive, SharePoint for storage, etc. And when they're being targeted and they have kind of a not secure configuration, you bet they're going to get in. So in this advisory, which you can look up, or if you want, we can post a link to it on the show notes. It does mention that there are some basics that you need to do in your 365 account in order to prevent these guys from getting in. I guess I can go into some of these recommendations if you're interested, Jay.
Yeah, I am. I thought you were talking about, it's not social manipulation anymore. We're talking about technical things, and we're talking about technical things you can do to defeat it. So yes, tell us how it presents. Tell us how we can defeat it.
So the technical portion comes after the social engineering. So let's pretend that you do fall for a scam, right? And your office is using Microsoft 365. By the way, this is real life stuff. We've seen this a few times just over the past month. Someone in the organization accidentally clicks on an email. And in that email, it says, "Hey, there's a document here. We need you to open it. It comes from a trusted vendor." And it goes to a website. And inside that website, it says, "Oh, in order to view this document, you need to enter in your Office 365 credentials." Right? So you put in your organization's credentials. Of course, it doesn't work, kind of shakes back at you and says, "Oh, this is invalid." But what it's doing is it's harvesting those credentials in order to repeat the scam, right? They're going to get inside your mailbox. There are some basic things that need to be turned on. And two-factor authentication is a big one, but there's something called security defaults in 365. Security defaults means that it turns on two-factor authentication, but also turns off a lot of older things, such as TLS 1.0 authentication. So other authentication methods that are now considered insecure, those get disabled. It also, I believe it turns on audit logging as well. So there are some things that you can do, like, for example, I don't know, keep an audit log, keep a log of people that are trying to access the account, the ingress and egress of data. Those audit logging and security controls need to be enabled, turned on, and by default, they're turned on for 30 days. But if you turn on audit logging for specific events, for example, if you're using SharePoint at your organization, that should be turned on for longer. And you can turn that on for up to 1 year, but you have to go in there and do that. So there are some, basics, and those are inside of that APT advisory from CISA and FBI. So I recommend looking at what those are and how they could apply to your 365 environment, because that's how they're mostly getting in. The Google people, it's interesting that the Google infrastructure out of the box is a little bit more secure than the Microsoft one. You have to remember that these vendors want folks to sign up for their services. And security is annoying. No one likes security. No one likes doing two-factor. No one likes doing this stuff. And because of that, the vendor has a dilemma, right? Does Microsoft release this product in the most secure state, annoy all of their clients and potentially drive them away? Or do they release it in a much more friendly fashion that's less secure? And as a consequence, the accounts get hacked, but then they can point the finger back at the customer, and they have greater adoption and more people use their products and services, and the economy continues to flow, their stock continues to go up. So they're going to choose the latter route for obvious reasons. So it's up to you, and the onus is on the user and the IT manager specifically to make sure that these security configurations are turned on and properly configured inside the infrastructure. And even after you do all of those things, you can still become a target if there are some poor cyber hygiene policies followed at the organization. Probably the one that makes the most sense is something called least privilege. Least privilege means that the accounting department doesn't have access to production department. Production department doesn't have access to sales department, and sales doesn't have access to accounting, right? Basic stuff. You would think, but in our busy days and a lot of folks working remotely and migrations to the cloud, and figuring out who has access to what is sometimes a little bit more difficult. And so reviewing those security access policies for least privilege for your users, super critical. You don't want to have an incident where even if they do get inside, they spread throughout the entire organization because you didn't have those proper walls set up between departments and between roles and responsibilities. And many of the folks that we do work with are working with federal contracting jobs. So a consequence of this would mean that they would be, for example, delivered something that would be considered CUI or controlled unclassified information. And then that data ends up inside of a cloud environment or a local environment where others have access to that file location that they should not have access to. And sure enough, it gets exfiltrated. So the old days of having a hacker jump inside the network and encrypt it, that's pretty much gone. If they're doing that, they've already done everything else. They've been inside that network for weeks, if not months, watching data come in and out, and folks come in and out, and they want to pick the ideal time to either take the data out and scam someone that maybe you've been corresponding with, or as a last ditch resort, they'll say, heck with it, we'll just encrypt the whole thing and see if we can get some money out of them. And
The ransomware approach.
mhm.
But what size do I have to be worried about this? Because you can buy, say, Microsoft 365, and put your shopping list on it for Safeway. They can have my shopping list for Safeway. I don't care. Maybe they'll leave some groceries for me on my doorstep. But in fact, maybe Kevin Mitnick would, yeah. But in fact, if I'm big and if I have an IT department and a human resources department and various financial departments and management departments, and hundreds of employees, then it's going to be different. So where's the line where I should start worrying?
Well, we don't live in a siloed economy here. Let's pretend you're a dog groomer, right?
Mhm.
And you just have yourself, you're a solopreneur, grooming dogs out of your van. Um, what's the consequence of you getting hacked and you going out of business? Maybe you have other financial obligations and you're a homeowner, right? So you're a dog groomer and a homeowner. Now you lose your house. What's the trickle down effect of that, right? One more foreclosure. What's the trickle down effect of that, right? So it does affect more, even at the smallest scale, our entire economy. And the targets of these bad actors are not dog groomers. They're critical infrastructure providers, banks, schools, hospitals. You have to remember, this is a blanketed approach. If it's an advanced persistent threat actor or an APT, they're nation state. They're interested in disrupting the economy any way that they can, because the fire and missile is pretty disruptive. But if they can take down the electrical grid, even for half a day, and then maybe time another attack at the same time, that's pretty impressive. And we're starting to see that, throughout Ukraine. Russia has upped their game, and they have a very well-funded task force, that's on the offensive, not just against the Ukraine, but other parts of the world. So this is not a secret that they are after critical infrastructure.
Bogosian was a chef for a while, And then he got to be Putin's chef. And then Putin turned over the IRA to Prigozhin. I'm not sure how you get from being a chef to the manager of the IRA. That's the Internet Research Agency in Moscow, which does hacking. Um, it was very sophisticated. And I think Putin is a past master at that sort of thing. And it goes global. He can use it on Ukraine or anywhere else. It's pretty scary. So we know that if I don't turn these various functions off and have a two-party authentication going and all that, they can get in on my Office 365 and get my grocery list, whatever I have there. But what about automating that? So it's not just me, it's me and it's, 500,000 other computer users here in Hawaii. Now, the question is whether this kind of hacking can be automated to the point where it's more than one person, it's 500,000 people. Can that be done? Is that being done?
It can be. I mean, think about it this way. Why is your grocery list so important? What if they were able to access what people are buying and then find a way to disrupt that? So let's say on your grocery list, your top item is milk, right? How could they disrupt the milk production in Hawaii? Could it be done? Probably, yeah. We've seen it with canned beverages. So Arizona tea was hacked and taken down, and everyone thought, it's Arizona tea. So what? It's a canned tea beverage. No big deal. But it turned out to have a big backlog, and it was damaging to the community there, right? Uh,
Mhm.
it was, and it cost them. Uh, I believe it was like a few $1,000,000 just in software licensing fees and remediation. Um, I believe the average cost to this is according to the latest IC3 report. The average cost to recover was $240,000 for a company, and
Wow.
those were hard costs, often not associated with soft costs such as reputation damage and losing customers and that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's into the future, and that could be more expensive yet. Okay, so you mentioned earlier that Google was more secure than Microsoft. How and why, and what does that suggest to me in terms of the choice between Microsoft 365 Word and Google, the array, the suite of Google programs that do largely the same thing?
Yeah, it's a good question. Like I said, out of the box, Microsoft is less secure, and Google has those security controls built in. So both are secure platforms and can be used securely. But out of the box, Microsoft wants you to get on board with their product. And so they're going to make it a little bit less secure.
Mm.
That's pretty much the gist of the two of them.
I don't know how to deal with this because if you took a percentage of people who have these products, who use these products, um, just in terms of the number of installs, the greatest number of installs would be, the common folk who use it for grocery lists. Now, the big corporations may have hundreds of installs within their corporation, but taking all of that together, it's not as many, boots on the ground, so to speak, as the individual people like me who have a little wee computer and a little wee copy of Microsoft or use Google.
If you have $100 in your pocket, they want that. They want that money. So they're going to go after you any way that they can. No win is too small for them.
Who's they?
Oh, these are the bad actors.
Changing, is that a dynamic? Are they American? Are they Bulgarian? Are they Asian? What are they?
Typically, we don't find them in America. They are usually outside of America. Think about our exchange rate, right? What is $100 worth in Vietnam, right? It's it's worth a lot more than it is here. Shoot, you leave the house, you can't leave the house without spending $50 practically. If you want to buy gas and lunch, you're over that amount. So really think about what the value of the dollar is worth in other places, and Now that does lead me to another recent issue that did come up, which was very timely. It was related to video games and kids who are home for summer break, right? So a lot of kids are now playing video games on their computers. Back in the day, you and I used to probably go outdoors during summer break, but not anymore. Now it's all multiplayer, fancy pants games, and part of that is that children are by nature impatient, as I believe most adults are as well. And in a video game environment, sometimes you have to spend maybe hundreds, if not thousands, of hours to level up to a certain proficiency. And why not skip the line and install a hack? And so hacks have been emerging on certain places I won't name, but they do have the word pirate in them. And those kind of sources will be able to deliver a malicious payload to that kid's computer. So remember, you're talking about, like, am I too small? Well, think about your kids. What if their computer gets compromised with a game that they downloaded, right? And in that game, it's watching keystrokes and doing other things in the background to spread that malicious software to other places. Well, what if you do your online banking on that same computer later on? Now they're inside your bank account. Think about these kind of like scenarios. That's what they're after. It's how do they leapfrog, move laterally, steal money, do anything that they can to disrupt your life, because to them, it's cheap. Their time is very inexpensive, but one win can be a lot for them.
One problem, let me throw it at you and see what you think, is that if I'm concerned, and to the extent that I'm concerned about being a target for this sort of thing, I have to take steps to get a third party program in there, or to find something on the Microsoft site or possibly the Google site, and change my settings as necessary to screen out the bad actors. It's aside from the fact that that's work, it also presents as a bit of a risk, because when this software comes on the screen and says, "Jay, you got to fix this and that and the other thing," I say to myself, how confident am I that this is the real software? How confident am I that this is not just another scam trying to get my data and trying to get inside my programs? So I worry about that, Tilla. I worry about going anywhere outside the basic program and trying to fix this stuff without knowing for sure that this is a legitimate fix and not just another scam.
You hit an important point, Jay, is that what we try to do is raise community awareness for these kind of scams and vulnerabilities and ways in which the criminals think in order to get at people's money and damage their life and their business. So the best defense is common sense. If you didn't pay for it, you're paying for it in some other way, right? If there's a piece of software your kid is playing, if you peer over your kid's shoulder, they're playing a video game that you did not buy, guess what? It's probably been stolen. And it's probably stealing data as is being played. So we don't want that. Think about common sense and how these emails or putting in credentials and these kind of things, the impersonations that can occur. Like I mentioned with these AI engines, obviously we all know about OpenAI, but there's Jasper.ai. That's number two. Descript.com, Writer.me, WriteSonic, Hugging Face, Quillbot, WordTune. I mean, these are all AI engines out there that are being used by bad actors to compose and break into people's machines and generate code to go ahead and do bad things in real time sometimes. So it's pretty interesting how the AI has changed the game, but common sense still trumps it all. So, Jay, don't click on any emails.
You mentioned that the information is available, or at least it's promulgated through what, the FBI, maybe other federal agencies. But that raises a question for me. I want to pose to you: is who is actually out there protecting us aside from telling you or me or anybody in the community how we can shut down, holes in the boat, what about somebody, getting on the switches, getting on the wires, getting into the servers, whatever it is, and protecting us. So like for example, Cisco. Cisco, you can't transmit a lot of data without Cisco. So why can't Cisco stop the bad actors? Why can't some of these other infrastructure companies stop the bad actors? Why can't the FBI get in there, not on an after the fact basis, but on a before the fact, but on a before the fact, a prevention basis? Why can't that happen?
Yeah, you bring up a good point. How do you protect yourself? I mean, you're describing exactly what we do. And we are a cybersecurity company. We're in the protection business, and that's what folks bring us on to their organizations to do. I mean, we keep this stuff from happening, and we can only do so much as is reasonable. And so that second half of that, I mean, you can do prevention, but prevention isn't 100% because there's always something new being discovered. The detection and the response, that's really where the value comes in. So even if they do get in, being able to detect it and close the plug those holes, as you said, that's going to be really important. I don't know if you remember this. I'll give you an example. A few years ago, there used to be something called ActiveX and Flash. You remember all that?
Mhm,
Flash
I do.
animations, activation.
Absolutely do.
And are you wondering, like, whatever happened with all that great ActiveX and Flash components, all that stuff? What happened is there were so many vulnerabilities discovered. It was something like in the thousands, where they said, "Look, we give up. We can't protect this product, so it's gone. No more
Mhm,
Flash, no more ActiveX. Forget about it."
mm.
Client side scripting is not something we're going to support any longer. And so that's an example of a vendor, Microsoft in this case, saying we give up. So what do you do? And that's where you either have to educate yourself and do it yourself, or bring on a firm such as a cybersecurity company who will do this for you and keep you safe, so that way you can focus on your work, which is being an attorney, or running infrastructure, or building those buildings, or fixing those roads that we all depend upon.
Well, can I get that on a subscription basis? In other words, I would prefer to do it on a prevention basis, not on an after the fact basis. And I would like to, it's sort of like other software. I would like to say to this company that's going to prevent it for me, I'll pay you X dollars a month or a year. And you just come and protect me. And we know that the bad actors are going to keep on changing their systems, their software, their various attempts to hurt me. So we expect you to track on that and to make sure that you're up ahead of them. Is that in the marketplace? You do that?
That's us. You're describing it to a T.
Mm,
Keeps the
mm.
cost down, and keeps us focused on what's important, which is protecting companies against the latest threats. And it keeps the clients happy because at the end of the day, they have a predictable cost and they have a predictable outcome.
Does that get more difficult for you as the bad guys get more sophisticated?
Yes, it's constant arms race. We have many weapons at our disposal, and that's what we use to protect our clients. But we're always picking up the latest tech. It's our job to stay on top of this stuff. And to be fair, for us, it's a lot of fun finding out about this stuff. Oh yeah, this is great fun. But much like every profession, if you've ever, I don't know, worked on a car, or tried to do taxes, it may not be so fun for you. So finding that firm where they really genuinely enjoy finding out the latest stuff that related to cyber, the latest vulnerabilities, latest ways that these things are happening to people. That's really valuable. That's our Kuleana.
Mm.
Uh, and if you love it too, hey, we're looking for good people. So
Maybe for my next chapter. So there's certainly that works, but query, is this something that these subscriptions that are available in the cyber protection business, does the cyber protection professional have to come and look at my screen? Does the cyber professional, is he able or she able to get onto my computer the way some of the software support organizations do, you know? You let them on your system and they can poke around and look here and there and fix things. Or does the cyber professional do this on the cloud? So how intrusive is this experience by a cyber professional on my machine, my system, my network? How close in, how physically close in do you have to get to help me?
There is a remember I mentioned earlier how security can be kind of annoying sometimes. In general, mature cyber companies such as ourselves have been through the gamut of finding ways to be as minimally intrusive to the company as possible. So what that means is that we do things in the middle of the night. So that way when the employees come in the day, they never know.
You don't have to come in and handle my keyboard or my computer. You can do this remotely.
Most of it is remotely. I mean, obviously sometimes you do need to come on site. Like I can give you an example of something that happened just today. We had a client that we were protecting and they accidentally clicked on an email and that email tried to deploy ransomware and we shut down a good portion of their network to prevent the ransomware from spreading. And we're able to mitigate the entire threat. To a degree, they were kind of annoyed because they got in and all of a sudden all their computers couldn't get on the network. So it was just for a couple hours, half their organization couldn't function. But when they saw that we had actually stopped a real threat and were able to roll back everything and keep them up and going, that was a great compromise. So that's an example of something that could have shut down their entire business for days, if not weeks, costing them hundreds of thousands of dollars, caused them a minor inconvenience for a couple hours.
Yeah, that's a minor price to pay to be safe from a ransomware attack, or particularly pernicious. Gee whiz. Well, thank you for helping us understand these things. I always enjoy sort of getting current with you, Attila, and finding out what the latest threat is and how what do you call it, the protection industry is responding to it, and the two dynamics working in tandem almost, one chasing the other and the other chasing the first. And I guess it will always be thus. I would love to see some sort of grand plan solution. And I know that when we have that, you'll let me know.
Well, until then, we're just going to love what we do and love protecting the community.
Thank you, Attila. Attila Seress, Cypac. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for watching ThinkTech Hawaii. If you like what we do, please click the like and subscribe button on YouTube. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Check out our website, thinktechhawaii.com. Mahalo.